gentlemen, welcome to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. I am Garrett Pogromich. With me here is my co-host, as always, Nick Castellian. We got a lot to cover on the show today. We're going to go over some news, notes, things that you should keep in track about before your draft. We're also going to answer some questions that were sent in to us, and we're going to go over the top 25 wide receiver PPR rankings, and our consensus rankings will be put out on the website after this is published. So, yes, let's get into it. Nick, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. We have our home league draft this Sunday, so it's getting close
10
to
p.m.
drafting, so
late night drafting.
I'm pretty excited about that. All right, let's get into the news and notes. Let's get into Kenyon Drake. He was seen in training camp with a walking boot on his leg. What are you making of that? Are you still drafting him, or are you concerned?
I'm still drafting him. I had him in my top 25. You didn't, and I still think there's some value there, but I think Kalen Ballage's value goes up.
Well, you may get value now because he may slide more rounds, and instead of drafting him in the 5th, 6th
That's
round,
a good point.
You may get him in the 8th round because of that. But like you said, Kalen Ballage is now, he may run away with that opportunity, so that's something to keep an eye on. If he looks good in the next 2 or 3 preseason games, he may just have the job week 1, and that he may never give it back.
Do you think Drake doesn't play week 1?
I don't think he plays week 1, but I think he'll play early in the season, so 3 or 4, 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in there.
We'll have to see. We will have to see. Next, we'll talk about Amari Cooper. Tell us about Amari Cooper, Drake.
Amari Cooper, he's still trying to work out his contract situation, and it's unlike Ezekiel Elliott. He will be there. He's going to play. He had a slight a foot injury. He had like a split in his foot, and they said that it's kind of like a pain tolerance thing where he's going to have to play through that injury. It's not like a hampering injury where like AJ Green had to have surgery. He has to miss time. This is pain tolerance. He's going to be, fighting this pain throughout the season. So that's the only concern there. Is he going to be tough enough to play?
There's no way the Cowboys are going to be able to pay all 3. Because
you don't think so?
Dak wants $40 million a year, and then Ezekiel Elliott probably wants to be the top paid running back. Amari probably wants to be the top paid wide receiver.
Right.
It's going to be who they decide to cut, or not cut, but like who they decide to pay.
Paying on. Yeah, I think he'll play, but
he'll play.
He is. The only thing with Cooper is he was inconsistent in Oakland, and he was more consistent in Dallas. But he did have a couple of games where he had against Washington. He had like 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. He'll have those weeks where he just is crazy, but then you'll have weeks where it's 4 catches.
And this will be the first time we see him for like an entire season. So
yeah, and it helps that he's went through training camp with the Cowboys, has that extra time with Prescott and the offense. So it's like he knows the offense a lot better. He got thrown in the fire, got traded there last year, so he should know the offense better. They should get him the ball more, and so there is positive signs here. It's just, is he going to be consistent enough, and will he be able to fight
and to play devil's advocate, now defenses will know what to expect with him on the team.
Right.
So there is a bit of positive and negative
and
too.
If you have Cooper, you definitely want them to have Elliott, because that takes a lot of pressure off Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they don't have Elliott back there running the ball, then there will be a lot of double coverage on Cooper.
All right.
And speaking of Elliott, we'll get into Ezekiel Elliott. He has still not reported. And obviously, we just talked about our draft is this Sunday. So a lot of people with that, 5, 6, 7 area where you don't think you would get, wouldn't get him in the normal draft because you'd go 3 or 4. Now you got to decide, is it worth the risk to get him? Because if you get him at 7, or what if he even fell to like 8? Then you're getting, potentially the best player in fantasy football at that spot. So it's enticing, but he still hasn't reported. What are your opinions? Are you interested in drafting him in the first
I'm not drafting Elliott.
In the mid, what pick would it have to be for you to pick him? Because I know you have pick 3.
Second round.
You'd have to fall to the second round.
I need a solid found. If I can find, I don't know if it's a running back or a wide receiver. If you're that last half of the draft, but if I can find someone, like I can really rely on, because
Well, yeah, when you're picking 5, 6, and 7, you
Yeah.
can get Hopkins, Devontae Adams. Those are
Right.
the best, in my opinion, the best wide receivers in fantasy. And there's no scrub running backs. David Johnson is talented. I like Bell,
Yeah.
but whoever you have, picking in the first round, you're getting an elite player. It's just, are they going to play or not? And I think Elliott will be there. If not week 1, he'll be there in the first 4 weeks of the year. I don't
Yeah.
think he sits out. He can't sit out because he has 2 years on his contract. He will get fined if he misses time. He needs money. I think they find a way. Jerry Jones is getting older. He needs to win now. It's not a... No, that's a real thing.
I know it's a real thing.
Jerry
That's just,
Jones
I never
is
thought
older.
about that.
He has the pieces. Dallas has the pieces to be competitive.
Yeah.
So, and they need to ride Ezekiel Elliott. So they need him. It's not
Yeah.
like can we get away with Alfred Morris and a committee of running backs. They need to have Dak Prescott, Mari Cooper, and Ezekiel Elliott on that offense in order to be successful because they have a good defense.
I would argue
they
that the
need
running
Elliott.
back isn't the most important position
On
in the
the
offense.
Cowboys, it is. On the Cowboys, it is because Dak Prescott without Ezekiel Elliott becomes extremely, extremely vulnerable,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay. And when you're picking in those spots in fantasy, it's all about how much risk you're willing to take. Me, in the first round, I want 0% risk.
So you would not be a top 12 pick in your opinion?
For my team, no. But
Okay.
for if you value someone who has 10% or 15% risk and you're willing to take that, then
Yeah, I'm
by all
willing,
means, yeah.
If I'm at pick 5, no, if I'm at pick 5, 6, or 7, I'm willing to take that risk. I'm confident he'll be there in the first 4 weeks. So if he shows
It's all
up
about
if he shows up week 4, then I get him week 4 to 16. So
It's all about what
it's
you're
all
on.
about how well you think you can draft a team because I'm pretty confident I can get running backs later that can supplement the first 4
Are you trying
weeks.
to say something or?
No, I'm just saying it's how confident are you that if Zeke Elliott misses 4 games, can you stay above water and go
Right.
2 and 2, 3, whatever it is? There's enough running backs to where you can fill him in and piece this together until he comes back because I don't think he misses the entire year. He's got 2 years left on a contract. It's not
Yeah.
like he's
It's not the end of the
it's
world.
not Le'Veon Bell where he was franchise tagged. He didn't have to show up. He's going to get fined. He has to show up, and he needs the years for his free agency. So I expect him to be there the first 4 weeks.
All right.
All right, let's get into the last player of the news and notes, and that's Antonio Brown. Obviously, there was some drama about his helmet issue and his frostbite on his toes. So, what are your thoughts on Antonio Brown, Garrett? Are you at all worried that this will be a problem season long where he's got something, whether it's he's got some kind of drama issue, is it injury? What's your thoughts on
I
that?
mean, Antonio Brown was never, I don't want to say never. He's not too high on my list to begin with, and we'll get into that once we get into our rankings. But when it comes to drama and all that, that's kind of who Antonio Brown is. He likes to antagonize. He likes to, be the star of the show.
That's what he's always been like. So
Yeah.
it's nothing
So
new.
I'm not too especially worried about Antonio Brown like missing games or making a mistake that could cost him later. I think the helmet saga was funny, but now that it's over, it's just kind of it is what it is. And I didn't read the story about doctors peeling stuff off his feet from
That was
frostbite.
disgusting.
But when it comes to him playing concerns about whether he'll be there, I'm not really concerned.
All right, and I'm not concerned about Antonio Brown. We'll talk about where I have him ranked in a second, but I think he'll play. I think he'll be peppered with targets. They have Tyrell Williams there, but I mean it's Antonio
Sleeper.
Brown or bust. They traded to get him.
Yeah.
John Gruden is tied to him. Derek Carr, his future in Oakland, or if you want to say the Las Vegas Raiders, long term is tied to him. So they're going to rely heavily on Antonio Brown. I just think his touchdown number will come down and his overall yardage and I think he has a regression, but he'll still be, in my opinion, a effective wide receiver. It's just, is he going to be the 15 touchdown guy he was last year in Pittsburgh? I don't think he'll be that high.
And him and Derek Carr already have a great relationship. I watched the first episode of Hard Knocks because it was on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm not rich enough to get HBO, but but after just seeing that first episode, seeing the chemistry that they had, they're gonna have a good relationship on the field.
Yeah, that's a good point to point out. All right, let's get into our top 25.
No, we
wide
have some
receivers.
questions. The people.
Oh yeah, I
the
forgot
people
about
got to
the
know.
questions. All right, here's a question.
First question.
First question: Will Odell Beckham Jr. finish the year as a top 5 wide receiver? And this is PPR. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I think he will finish the year as a top 5 wide receiver. I'm curious to see not what his role is within the Browns, but how much volume he has with Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, and what Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, decides to do with Antonio Brown, or not Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham. So I do think he gets enough volume. He's in that top tier of wide receivers. He's in my tier 1. And so I'm excited to see what Odell Beckham does this year.
I'm on the other side. I say no, he does not fall inside the top 5. I'm not saying that he's going to be, a bust in Cleveland this year. I just think there's so many elite wide receivers in football, and especially fantasy numbers.
Yeah.
I just think that, he's not going to be. They have, like you said, there's Nick Chubb there. They're going to run the ball a lot. They have Jarvis Landry. There's a receiver that not many people know about, but if you follow the Browns, it's Rashad Higgins. He's the number 3 receiver.
Yeah.
I think Antonio Brown. We're talking Antonio. I think Odell Beckham Jr. has a really great year, but there's so many great receivers in fantasy football. I don't think the receptions are there for him to get inside the top 5 wide receivers. I think he may have 10, 11 touchdowns, have 1,400 yards. He's going to have a great year. But the question is he going to be a top 5 wide receiver in PPR? I say the guys I have ahead of him, which we'll get into later, they will have a lot more receptions. I think Beckham Jr. is around the 85 to 95 reception total. I don't think he touches 110 receptions.
I don't have numbers for you because I'm not really I'm not savvy in projecting stats.
Yeah, and
all
I get the hype around him, and I get how
it is a new team for him.
I get how someone can say he'll get in the top 5, but they do have nice pieces on that offense. They have a really good young tight end. They have a really good young running back, and they have Landry there. And Landry he's a definitely above average wide receiver. So
it's not a situation like DeAndre Hopkins has where he's the only elite option on that offense.
Yeah. So I think he'll get peppered with targets, but there is the concern that if it goes south in Cleveland, is there going to be tension? Is there going to be turmoil? There is that question, and and this is where it goes. The guys I have above him, I have less concern about their season going south. They're being sour. They want the ball, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I have Odell as just outside the top 5 for me.
All right. I want to thank that person for sending that question in. Let's move on to our second.
All right, for number 2, we got, when are you comfortable reaching on a quarterback? This is a really good question because a lot of people do this. So, Garrett?
The earliest I will pick a quarterback is the 5th round. I like the idea of having 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers to start off your draft. That may or may not contradict what I said 2 weeks ago in our mock draft podcast. But, doing so many mock drafts, I feel that, if you really want an elite guy and you can get someone like Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers in the 5th round, I think that's pretty good value. I've seen Deshaun Watson go as late as the 6th round, which is crazy to think about, but that's very much possible. I think the earliest I would reach is the 5th round, but it just depends on the right talent. Obviously, I'm not going to get Patrick Mahomes because he's going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round for whatever reason, and that's the earliest I would reach on a quarterback.
For me, I only have 3 quarterbacks that this year I would reach on, and I normally take quarterback round 8 or later. So these are 3 guys that I'm willing to use a top 7 round pick on, and I actually had them written down. I had Patrick Mahomes if he fell to the 5th round, which he'll never happen. But this is just for my comfort level. When I'm willing to dive in and take a guy, the first 4 rounds, I'm getting elite starting players at the wide receiver, running back, and maybe tight end position. So I have Patrick Mahomes round 5, and then I have Watson and Aaron Rodgers round 7. And I think, in home leagues and leagues where people love the quarterback and they value it a lot more than I would, they're going to go before me. But my comfort level, I'm willing to go on Rodgers 7 and Watson 7 and Mahomes round 5.
Yeah, and it really depends. I think because running backs and wide receivers are so, to find elite talent there is so few and far between. But you can get a guy like Dak Prescott and be fine most of the year. And he's a guy that I think might finish top 12 this year,
Yeah, you can get it's so deep at the quarterback position. I was getting in a lot of mocks. I was getting Lamar Jackson around 12, and that right there I'm comfortable with because I can pair Lamar Jackson with Kirk Cousins, someone safer that if he does get injured running the ball, whatever the case is, Lamar Jackson, I'm paired with a safer quarterback. I can work with a 12th and a 14th round pick on my quarterback.
And we're going to talk more about sleepers and guys you can find in the deep rounds for quarterbacks next week when we do our quarterback and tight end podcast. But I'll talk about these quarterbacks for each other. I would love to have Mahomes, Watson, and Rodgers, but it's just not going to happen.
It's just not going to happen on my roster. Just like the Kelsey and these other tight ends will go way earlier than I could get them. I would take Kelsey in the second round, but he'll probably go before I'm comfortable because I'm early in the second round. I'd rather have him later in the second round. So there's positions where people they go get the guy that they want, which is fine, but you're going to be limited roster-wise if you use a top 4 pick on a quarterback because if you use...
You're going to have your...
Mahomes was almost in some leagues undrafted. In some leagues he was like the last couple rounds.
Right.
So that's where you got your league-winning value because you didn't use a high pick on him. He came out and he's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, and you got him way late. It's not like you drafted.
And that's a great example.
If you were to draft Mahomes in the second, third round, then you're getting the value if he throws for 50 touchdowns. Do I think he throws for 50 touchdowns? That is hard to repeat. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, it was hard for all these great quarterbacks to repeat. I think he's more at the 40 touchdowns instead of 50. And that over the course of the season, that 10 touchdowns will drop you closer to Cam Newton, Russ, all these other guys that are a tier lower, but you're drafting them in the 8th, 9th, 10th round. So,
and if you value him high, Kyler Murray is being drafted 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th round.
And that's someone that you can take a risk on and he could boom.
Yeah.
So that's a guy that I thought Murray would have a higher draft value.
So did I
thought he would be a 7th round.
Especially seen after Mahomes this past year, I thought he'd be higher.
And Murray may have a couple more preseason games and he may move up a round or two, but I thought Murray would be a top 7 round pick. That's what I thought. But he's going in round 9, 10 in my mock
And
draft.
thank goodness. All right, now we're going to get into our top 25 wide receivers. I almost forgot the position. Wide receivers. PPR rankings. I'm going to start at number 25. I have Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. With A.J. Green going down the first few weeks, his value booms up a lot. I think even with A.J. Green there, I think he's going to have a solidified role as the number 2 wide receiver. He's going to get plenty of targets from Andy Dalton, and I'm excited to see what this new offense has with the assistant from Los Angeles. So I am excited to see what Tyler Boyd does this year, and I have him at 25.
And important note about Tyler Boyd, I had him on my rosters last year, so I know this. He had better fantasy weeks when A.J. Green was there than when A.J. Green wasn't. So that's a big note to actually point out. He didn't handle the number 1 coverage on the opposing team very well. He had a hard time getting open. But so when A.J. Green does return, you can still start Tyler Boyd, and you actually I'm more comfortable starting Tyler Boyd with A.J. Green there. I'm not worried about, will he get enough targets? He will get open. He was very productive last year when A.J. Green was there, so at 25, I see no problem with that. I'm just mentioning that he was actually more productive with A.J. Green, taking the number 1 coverage, drawing all that attention, and Boyd working in the slot. So that's something to point out there. At 25, I have Jarvis Landry.
Good pick.
I think in PPR, he's right there at the low-end low-end wide receiver 2 rankings, high-end wide receiver 3, because he will have a lot of receptions. I think 80, 90 receptions is almost
reasonable.
Money in the bank every year for Landry. And so I have him at 25. I have a 25 because I think the touchdown numbers are significantly limited. I don't think he's a double-digit touchdown guy, especially with Beckham in the offense, especially with in the red zone. They're going to go to Njoku. They're going to run the ball with Chubb. So Landry will get you 80, 90 receptions, get that 1,000-yard total, but he's not a big yards per catch guy. He's not a big yards after the catch guy. He's going to get you those 7, 8 catches a week, and then you build off of. If he gets you that touchdown, you had a good week with Landry.
He's not in my top 25, but he would be in my top 30, I bet. Jarvis Landry's a good guy to target for your low end.
He's not getting overdrafted, which I like. He's going in the, I haven't had him in many mocks because the guys I have higher than him are there, but he's, 7th round pick, 8th round pick. That's fine because he can be your flex play almost every week because in a flex play, you're going to get that safe 6, 7, 8 catches and the rest is bonus points at that point, especially in PPR.
I hear you. 24?
At 24, I have Calvin Ridley from the Falcons. I talked about this in my draft kit. He had 10 touchdowns last year. I think there's touchdown regression. He had a lot of good weeks last year, and it took him a couple weeks to get going. I love Calvin Ridley, but I think he's a low-end wide receiver 2 start for me. He's guaranteed flex start. If I have him on my roster as a wide receiver 3, I'm starting him at flex every week. Plays in a great offense. Julio Jones takes away all that coverage every week. They have a average receiver, Sanu, who can help with that. They have in my opinion, a really good quarterback in not Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan. And they got your guy, Devontae Freeman. They have pieces on that offense. In my opinion, they're a top 5 offense in football, and I want to be a part of that. And if I get the slot receiver in that top 5 offense as my flex play, I'm happy, and I'm going to be targeting him in all my drafts.
Calvin Ridley is a little bit higher on my list, and he's someone that when Julio Jones was having a lot of trouble finding a touchdown early in the season last year, it was Calvin Ridley that was getting a lot of those red zone targets. So,
well, especially in the red zone, the teams will. It's kind of like back when Calvin Johnson would play, they would just put 2 guys on him and just take him out of. Once they get inside the 10, take Julio Jones out of the game. And that's why Jones's touchdown numbers aren't great. He's not getting 15 touchdowns a year because teams will literally do a punt coverage on Julio Jones, and it's hard to go to that when you got a guy like Calvin Ridley breaking doing a drag route in the slot against a linebacker. So that's where this is where he's effective. Calvin Ridley will be effective in the red zone. I just think he's more at 7 touchdowns instead of 10. So I think a little bit of regression touchdown. I think he had more catches, a little bit more yards, but I think the 10 touchdown plateau is going to be, a high for him. It's not going to be what he gets this year.
I hear you. At 24, I have Cooper Kupp. This is my second ranked wide receiver for the Rams. I have Robert Woods a little bit higher, but Cooper Kupp is someone that I'm not sure what his role will be for the offense. I think every year it's kind of like a rotation of who's going to be the top guy in the Rams. And so that I have him as 23. I'm going to bank more on Robert Woods having more of an impact this year, but it really is, you could flip-flop the two and just, So You're
not at all concerned about him coming off an ACL injury?
Well, that's why, and that's also why he's a little bit, I was about to get to that. That's also why he's a little bit lower. I think Cooper Kupp, I still think he's going to
Well, yeah, he has a good role in that offense, and he was doing very well before he went down. So
yeah.
I see the intriguement of picking him, and so
he's still top 25 for me. And so I think, and he'll be fine throughout the offense. I just wonder if he's going to be as good or better than Robert Woods this year.
And you forgot to mention Brandon Cooks in that offense too. So they do.
Oh, that's right.
They do have 2 veterans, a loose term, because when you say veteran, you think guys that are getting old, they can't play anymore. They do have 2 proven, experienced wide receivers in that offense that, in my opinion, if I had to do a depth chart of the Rams, I would have outside receiver would be Robert Woods, the slot receiver would be Cooper Kupp, and the other outside receiver would be Brandon Cooks. So I think Cooper Kupp is established as a slot receiver, and they do a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And there's definitely upside and intriguement with Kupp. It's just, can he get back to what he was last year before he tore his ACL?
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. 24 you have.
At 23, I have DJ Moore.
Oh, that's right.
From Carolina. I have him lower here because Curtis Samuel has been getting a lot of attention in training camp. They have that offense is. They have Greg Olsen, Christian McCaffrey, Curtis Samuel, DJ. There's no one guy that's just going to go and get all the attention. So I think DJ Moore is a little bit overvalued. He's overdrafted, in my opinion, because getting DJ Moore in round 5, I'd rather have Curtis Samuel in round 8.
Yeah.
And so I think he's a little bit overdrafted. I think, I don't see a big touchdown upside there because it's going to be McCaffrey, and the touchdowns are going to be split. After McCaffrey gets his double digit, it's going to be split between Olsen, Samuel, DJ. I don't think you're drafting DJ Moore to have him be, a high-end wide receiver too, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and that's why he didn't make my top 25 for that reason. I think Curtis Samuel is going to get just as many, if not, probably around even amount of targets compared to.
I would not be shocked if Curtis Samuel finished the year with a better season than DJ Moore.
Yeah, and it's really, and it's a similar situation I was talking about with the Rams. You could really flip flop the two and see which one does better. That's why DJ Moore didn't make my top 25, and I think him and Curtis Samuel are going to have similar seasons.
Yeah, so you will not be drafting him because he's going in the 5th round, 6th round.
Yeah,
that's where he's locked in. People are excited about him. I'm more excited about Samuel in round 8 or 9.
All right, I hear you. At 23, I have AJ Green. This is really low for AJ Green, but he's going to be out for the first 4 to 6 weeks is what it's looking like. And
I wouldn't say 6 weeks. I would say between week 1 and week 4. I would think it's those weeks. I think he can come back early.
Okay.
So, but what you're saying is when he comes back, he may not be 100% like
right.
the 100% AJ Green. It may take him some guys, he's not going to be in the preseason. He's missing a lot of training camp. These guys have to get acclimated with the fast-paced, So AJ Green may not be AJ Green till week 6. So I get why you have that concern.
Yeah, and the Bengals are not the best run organization. I think they're going to try to force him back a little bit earlier. I'm curious as to where he finishes at the end of the year in comparison to other receivers around the league. I don't think he finishes as a wide receiver 1, and it'd be not surprising if he finishes as a wide receiver 2. But
and there it is notable to mention that you were talking about Tyler Boyd. You like Tyler Boyd, and he's good. He's healthy. He's young. They're going to get him the ball a lot, and there is Joe Mixon in there. And Joe Mixon, from everything I'm hearing, you talked about the Rams assistant coach came over to Cincinnati. He's been talking about using Joe Mixon like Todd Gurley. They're bringing that same offensive scheme there, and if Joe Mixon gets the 22 touches a game, that limits AJ Green's ceiling. So I think if I had to go through this, the offense when AJ Green returns, it goes through Joe Mixon. I would have AJ Green 2, and I would have Boyd 3. But if you're getting AJ Green later in the draft, that's fine because he can be your wide receiver 2 or flex play.
Where's the highest you would take AJ Green? I think we talked about this, but I forgot.
I would take AJ Green round 7. I think is the earliest I'm comfortable drafting him.
I'd probably maybe around 6. I'd probably be safe.
Yeah, I did a mock a couple days ago, and I got him around 7, and I'm comfortable with that because just looking at the overall team when I was done, I was very comfortable with slotting AJ Green as my. At that point, he would have been my flex play most weeks because I had 2 better receivers.
Right. If I draft him as my 3rd wide receiver, I'd be comfortable, even though I have him as a low-end wide receiver too.
All right. At 22, I have Mike Williams from the Chargers, and I think the reception, this is where he's down because I don't think he's a big reception guy. I think he maybe finishes the year 75, 80 receptions at most. He's not Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a guy that'll get 100 receptions. I have Mike Williams here. To me, Mike Williams has the upside of 10 touchdowns because he is a big receiver. He's going to be utilized in the red zone well. I have no concern with Mike Williams where he's getting drafted. I would love to have Mike Williams. He's a low-end wide receiver 2 to me because in PPR, receptions are very valuable, and he's just not a big reception guy.
Keenan Allen,
I said 75, 80 receptions most, but he could be 80 receptions, 10 touchdowns, and I would not be shocked. So that's why I have him here. I think it's Keenan Allen, and then it's Mike Williams, and then it's Hunter Henry. So I think Mike Williams is actually the second guy in that offense. And when Keenan Allen missed games last year,
and this is without Melvin Gordon.
Mike Williams produced. And that game against the Chargers, I think he had 3 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. He had a monster week. So he's got all the talent in the world. People forget he was a high first-round draft pick. He was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And
Clemson.
They just kind of overlook it because there's Keenan Allen there and stuff. But Mike Williams is a stud, and he's at 22 for me.
I'm one of those people who overlooked. I didn't even think about Mike Williams when I put my list together, but I think he's someone who, similar to Jarvis.
I think he's a low-end wide receiver, too, with touchdown upside. So you draft him, and he has the upside of getting you that 10 touchdowns of the year.
Yeah, and he'd be in my top 30 for sure. At 22, I have Tyler Lockett. This is a guy who I think ends up being the number 1 receiver in the offense. I'm curious to see where DK Metcalf ends up. But as it is right now, I would take Tyler Lockett as my low-end wide receiver 2 because I think he's going to be someone who finishes in the offense with the most targets throughout the year. And even though DK Metcalf is like not a scary presence, but kind of like someone who may take away some by the end of the year. I think Tyler Lockett has the slot position locked up.
Well, I got two parts here, and I'll be the pro and con of this.
Okay.
The pro is obviously Doug Baldwin's no longer there, so
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett is he's not a prototypical number one because he's smaller. He's not a big receiver, but Doug Baldwin was there for so many years. He's retired, so Tyler Lockett is Russell Wilson's most comfortable target, his favorite target. So I see the side there. The negative side here is he had 10 touchdowns last year. I believe he finished with 57, maybe 60 receptions. So I don't see him having that big of a production where I don't see him as a big touchdown guy, especially in Seattle where they run the ball a lot. They're
going to target big bodies. Yeah.
They do have a couple of receivers, DJ Moore, not DJ Moore, they have a couple
DK Metcalf.
Yeah, DK Metcalf. They have guys there where David Moore is who I was trying to talk about.
Oh.
I was seeing DJ Moore from Carolina. They have nice pieces there. And so I don't think the 10 touchdowns is there. And so that's why I think he's going to be a bust when you draft him, because you're drafting him in the 5th, 6th round, maybe even the 5th round. That to me is too high. You're drafting him at his ceiling of 10 touchdowns. I don't think he gets there. You think he gets 10 touchdowns?
I don't know if he'll get 10 touchdowns, but I think he ends up being the highest. I think he gets the most
receptions. He receptions.
I think he gets
his receptions and a little bit more yards even out if he goes down to 6 touchdowns, do you think that just balances that out?
Yeah, I think he'll get enough receptions. He's going to be the he's going to get the most receptions in that Seattle offense.
He's the number one passing option as far as getting the ball in that passing game. So I see there, but Seattle runs the ball a lot. They don't throw it a lot. Wilson's going to throw 25 times a game at most. So you got a very limited space because you try to chunk that out between every player there, and then it's just limited upside for me. That's why I don't have him in the top 25.
Okay.
At 21, I got AJ Green, and you mentioned all the stuff about his injury. When will he come back? This is where I'm comfortable having him. If I get him in round 7, I'm comfortable stashing him on my bench because when I get him back, he's an elite fantasy receiver, and he'll have top 12 weeks, and that'll help me get to where I want to be, and that's in the playoffs and hopefully in the championship game. So AJ Green, I'm not worried about. He plays with Andy Dalton. He's always produced with Andy Dalton when he plays, so no concern there. He's at 21 for me.
At 21, I have Calvin Ridley. You covered a lot of it. I think he's going to get a lot of touchdowns this year. I don't know how many targets he takes away from Julio Jones, but I think as the number 2 receiving option in that offense, he's going to be someone who gets a lot of targets. We've talked about it already, so I don't want to repeat what we've talked about.
Yeah, he's a nice low-end wide receiver 2 flex play every week. You're putting Calvin Ridley in your lineup every week.
Yep. At 20, I have Kenny Galladay. This is someone who, at 20, I have Kenny Galladay. This is someone who I think is going to be not explosive, but I think he's underdrafted for where he's going to end up being. I'm not sure where. I guess it contradicts what I say. I'm not sure what round he's being taken in, but I think
Galladay is going in the middle rounds between 5 and 6.
I'd be comfortable taking him there.
And sometimes he's reached in the 4th round. So he's in between the 4 and 6 in that middle tier 4 to 6 round.
No, see, I wouldn't take him in the 4th. Actually, yeah, I would. I'd take him in the 4th round.
You are all over the place on Galladay. I like him. I don't. I'll take him here. I won't take him here.
Bottom line.
Is this your Lions homerist coming in here?
No.
Have to. They
bottom
bump
line,
up their hometown team players because of fandom. So is that kind of a Lion homer pick?
No, that's not. No, bottom line, I like Kenny Galladay. He is the number 1 receiving option in that offense this year. Marvin Jones is going to be someone who takes away a lot of targets, but I think Kenny Galladay has the upside of getting many touchdowns. He's going to be that kind of Calvin Johnson, getting deep targets from Matthew Stafford throughout the year. Kenny Galladay is someone I'm excited about, and he's at number 20 for me.
At 20 for me, I have Cooper Kupp, and you touched on the role in the offense. The only reason why he's lower here is because he's coming off the ACL injury. So I have Cooper Kupp at 20. I have no problem with him being my wide receiver 2 if I have a strong wide receiver 1 and
Tier 1,
a couple of good running backs. So I have no problem getting Cooper Kupp as my 20th ranked receiver. I think he's gonna have they love him in LA. I'm not worried about there being this, Todd Gurley, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. I think they all produce, so I don't have any concern there. I think the Rams are going to have another good offensive year. Their season-wise, I'm not going to touch on that, but as far as their offense, Jared Goff isn't dropping down. He's still going to be what he was last year, so I don't see concern with Cooper Kupp at 20.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate position for him too. Who do you have at 19?
I have 19. I have Kenny Galladay. You
Okay.
touched on Kenny Galladay. He has all the physical attributes, all the talent in the world to be a strong wide receiver one in football. My concern is the Lions got a new offense coordinator, Darrell Bevell, who's a running. His scheme is to run the ball. He's a run first guy. They have the running backs to do it. Stafford. You seen Stafford last year? Did not look as good as he used to be.
Yeah, right with
I
you
think
on that.
they're still trying to, they're still trying to run the ball. It's going to be close to 50-50 run pass. It's not going to be as bad as Seattle, but it's still going to be 50-50. Do I think Kenny Galladay has a great year? No. I think he's getting overdrafted. Marvin Jones is getting way underdrafted. Week in, week out, Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, they can interplace each other as who has the week there.
You think so?
And Kenny Galladay is going to start seeing the other team's best cover guy, in my opinion. And so he's got to deal with a lot of things. He's got to deal with the running game. He's got to deal with facing better cornerbacks. He's got to face a lot of things. So Galladay, to me, has, limited upside. He has the talent to be great, but he has limited upside playing in the Lions offense.
I think he has a little more upside because I don't see Marvin Jones as like irreplaceable with Galladay. I think, there was I think it was 4 or 5 week stretch last year where Marvin Jones just disappeared and he didn't do anything.
Well, that's because he was
fantasy
hurt.
owners. No, not when
Marvin Jones was hurt last
No, I'm talking about when it was him and Kenny Galladay and he just kind of like disappeared.
if you're comfortable doing that, you can. But I'm just saying, I'll take Marvin Jones in round 9 over Kenny Galladay in round 4 all day long, in my opinion. Galladay will have more. He'll finish the year with more fantasy points, but to act like Galladay is, top like above and beyond Marvin Jones as far as what he's going to be like in this Lions offense, I think is not the correct terminology there. And
I'm not going to diminish Marvin Jones completely here. I think Marvin Jones has great, not upside, but I think he has good value if you took him in round 9, like you said.
Well, I'm just saying, in my opinion, it's week in and week out. We don't know who Stafford's going to target. It's just, it could be Marvin Jones gets 80 yards and a touchdown this week. Galladay gets it this.
Okay.
It could be each week. I'm not knowing what I'm getting from Galladay, so that's why I have him at 19.
I hear you. At 19, I have Chris Godwin. This is someone who I am very excited to see in the Bruce Arians offense. I'm excited to see everyone in this Bruce Arians offense. Winston, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin, who I have at 19, simply because I think he's going to take over the number 2 receiver role in that offense. O.J. Howard might, be threatened to take away some targets, but I think he falls below Chris Godwin. And Godwin is someone who not a lot of people are talking about. He's great at the position he's being drafted at, and I think you can get good value in the 6th, 7th round where he's being targeted.
At 18 for me, I got Godwin. Godwin, the quote Bruce Arians said earlier in training camp is, Chris Godwin will never come off the field. Obviously, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but Chris Godwin is a very nice player. He's not well known because he plays in Tampa Bay, but Godwin, I targeted him last year in waivers, picked him up. I was happy with Godwin. I think this is his breakout year. I see 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns easily from Godwin. I'm not concerned that Mike Evans is there. Mike Evans and Godwin can coexist, and on a team that's bad, they'll be trailing in a lot of games. They're going to have to pass the ball a lot. Godwin has fantasy value as the 18th receiver with upside. I don't see a ceiling for Godwin. Obviously he's not going to get 15 touchdowns. But what I'm saying is, I don't see, do I think like Galladay? I think Galladay limits out at this point. I don't think Godwin limits out because he plays on a bad team. They're going to have to pass the ball a lot. 40 times a game passing the ball, he's going to get those targets, so I have no problem with Godwin.
Yeah, the running game situation is not the best there in Tampa, and I think that is a good point to mention when you bring up Chris Godwin.
So I have him at 18.
Yeah, my 18 is Robbie Anderson from the New York Jets. This is someone I'm very high on. I think he's going to do leaps and bounds. I think he's going to be the number 1 target besides Le'Veon Bell in New York. Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson, there's so much upside there with Anderson that, yeah, he might not reach a top 25, but I think if he gets to his full potential, he could be someone who ends up being a very solid wide receiver too for your team.
You have Anderson that high?
Yeah.
You think you're not at all concerned about Sam Darnold? I mean, you were talking about it last podcast when I was talking about Le'Veon Bell, and you were talking about how Le'Veon Bell, you talking about Sam Darnold, average quarterback right now. You're not at all concerned about.
I think because it's PPR and I think someone has to get receptions, he's going to be the number one guy there. And I think I'm not concerned about, some people talk about Chris Herndon, who's the, starting tight end on that team. I didn't even know who that was until someone said his name. So
I'm just kind of surprised because I don't have Anderson in my top 25.
Really? I
just don't know how you could have Anderson above Godwin. I think Godwin's in for a much better year, safer year as far as. I don't care that he's not the number one and Robbie Anderson's the number one. I don't think the Jets are going to be bad this year. I don't think the Jets are going to have to be throwing the ball 40 times a game, trailing and get. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to have to throw the ball. Godwin's going to get a lot more looks, a lot more touches. I don't know how you have Robbie Anderson above Godwin.
I think there's more upside with Robbie Anderson, simply because he's the number one, and I think he gets somewhere around 8-9 touchdowns
in
this
the
year.
draft. You would draft Robbie Anderson above Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like that you're strong opinionated on Robbie Anderson.
I see.
I don't think he's but I think Robbie Anderson's someone who's in that 26 to 30 range for me. He's not in the top 25.
And you do, and that would be a tough decision to make with him and Chris Godwin. But comparing the two side by side,
so what round are you comfortable taking Anderson? Because Godwin is going in round 5. Are you comfortable taking Robbie Anderson around?
No,
5?
I'm not. No, and I think that's why I have him at 17. Is you can get him at a better value than you can get Chris Godwin at.
What value are you talking about? Round 8? He's going to be the 7, 8?
Yeah.
Is that why you're considering him?
Yeah, 7, 8 is probably where he's going to go in most drafts. And that's, I'm very comfortable taking him in that range.
All right, for 17, I have Brandon Cooks. Talked about Cooper Kupp. Brandon Cooks, people think he's overrated. They seen him on the Saints. They seen him on the Patriots. And now they think he's kind of like almost like a Deshaun Jackson boomer bust guy, but he's not. He very consistent last year.
Yeah.
I have no problem getting Brandon Cooks. I have no problem with any three of these guys. I just don't want to have all three, or I don't want to have multiple guys in the one offense. So if I have Woods earlier, I'm not going to target Cooks. So but Brandon Cooks, to me, if I have Brandon Cooks, that I'm totally fine with that. He's, in my opinion, a middle tier wide receiver too. And he's pretty safe because he plays on a good team, a good offense, and he's never really injury prone. He's a smaller receiver. He doesn't really take hits in his knees like bigger receivers will take. Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson always have they're always going to have something because they get taken out at the knees. Brandon Cooks is a safe option for me. He's 17 for me.
He's in my 17 too, and you just covered a lot of what I want to talk about.
And he's your second Rams receiver as far as. So higher than Cooks, then you have
Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I misspoke when I said he's the second wide receiver. Cooks is the second Rams receiver for me.
All right, who do you have at 16?
16, and most of you people aren't going to like this. I have Antonio Brown, and this is someone who I think is going to not struggle because I still have him at 16, but I think this is someone who could very much have on and off weeks. I think John Gruden's coaching is questionable. I still think Derek Carr is not below average, but I think he's a mediocre when it comes to him as a quarterback. Comparing him across the league, and so I'm interested to see what happens with Antonio Brown. I think Tyrell Williams is going to get a lot of looks as a slot receiver on that team, and I'm interested to see what Antonio Brown does. I don't have him in my top 10 because I just don't think he has weeks where he'll be a top 10 receiver, but I don't think that's going to be a consistent role for him every week.
All right, I'll get into 16. For me, I have Stephon Diggs. I drafted Stephon Diggs last year, and even though Adam Thielen had great weeks and he was the better fantasy receiver, people overlook how good Stephon Diggs is. He's people think he's a boomer bust guy, but he actually last year was more consistent than Adam Thielen as far as week 1 to 16.
He was quietly consistent.
Week 1 to 16, he was more consistent over the second half of the year. Adam Thielen 1 through 8 was dominant. You've seen those games.
Yeah.
He was on track with Calvin Johnson, 100 yards and a touchdown a week.
Yeah.
I was watching the broadcast, and they brought up on Sunday night broadcast where it was like Calvin Johnson and Adam Thielen 8 weeks, 100 straight yards and a touchdown. That's great.
Yeah.
But Adam Thielen had the second half of the year, he had a little bit more inconsistency. And Stephon Diggs, the whole season was consistent. And, I have Adam Thielen higher, but Stephon Diggs at 16, I'm more than comfortable getting Stephon Diggs in round 3. I'm happy with that. And I'm not concerned that Adam Thielen's there. They're going to try to run the ball more, is what they're talking about out of the Vikings camp. But Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen will both be productive. And I have Diggs here at 16, and I'm comfortable with him as my wide receiver too.
Yeah. At 15, I have Adam Thielen. You and I have Diggs and Thielen switched, and it's for the same reason of Thielen is a big play guy, but Stephon Diggs is like more consistent as as the season goes on. Diggs is a more consistent player. But to talk about Thielen, he's a big play guy. He does have those weeks where he's going to be like the top wide receiver in the league. I don't know if he reaches those heights again this year, so it's going to be interesting to see that. But I do think he's going to have a more consistent role within the offense of being able to make big plays for that team. So I have Adam Thielen at 15.
At 15, I got Julian Edelman. This is what I talk about. If you look in the dictionary, the definition of consistency, in my opinion, you can write Julian Edelman there.
Yeah.
He's really steady. The only concern with Edelman is sometimes he'll get banged up, miss time. He had an ACL 2 years ago, but he's healthy right now. So I'm not, you can sit here and you can make yourself concerned about players. You can literally talk yourself into being concerned. But right now, Julian Edelman's healthy. He's Tom Brady's favorite target. Him and James White are going to be the 1-2 passing options in that offense.
Yeah.
And it's crazy for me to say this, but I think Julian Edelman could get 10 touchdowns this year. And it's
it's
weird
possible.
because he's not like, you don't think of Julian Edelman as a big touchdown guy. You think of him as the kind of like Jarvis Landry. He'll get you the 80, 90 catches, get you that 1,000-yard baseline. But I think this year he can get that 10 touchdowns because he is Tom Brady's most reliable target. There is no Danny Amendola there. There is no Rob Gronkowski. They're relying on N'Keal Harry. Demaryius Thomas may not even make the team. There's some young guys that are flashing him the first week of preseason. But Tom Brady is going to do what he does best, and he's going to go to the guy he trusts the most. So there's a lot of third downs, 3rd and 8, 10 yards to Julian Edelman. Every time they do it. Julian Edelman, if he's my wide receiver too, I'm happy. So.
Do you think Josh Gordon comes back this season?
Oh, yeah, I do.
What week do you think
I
he
don't
comes
think that's
back?
crazy.
I know that's
he's
not
already
crazy.
reinstated to get back.
I know.
Do I know what week? No, I have no idea what week he gets back. I don't think he starts the year, but I think Josh Gordon at some point, the Patriots need wide receiver help. They drafted N'Keal Harry in the first round because they need it. They never draft a wide receiver in the first round.
Right.
They need Josh Gordon because Josh Gordon can be that red zone threat, be the big play guy. I think they view Josh Gordon as get him in late in the year where he can't get distracted. Get him in there, make sure he's ready for playoffs. I don't think he gets there week 5, 6, or 7. I think he's there end of the season where he's not fantasy relevant, Josh Gordon, but he's going to help the Patriots. But until then, Julian Edelman is the lead guy in that passing game.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I have him higher on my list, but we'll get to that. At 14, I have Robert Woods. This is the last tier I have, this is the last Rams receiver I have on my team. And all three of those Rams receivers are like very consistent passing options to look for. Just depends on who has the better week, who's the top wide receiver each week.
But Woods last year was the most consistent, so that's why he's getting drafted as the number one because there is those 3 receivers, but over the course of the year, Woods finished the year more consistent. He's gonna get you. He's not gonna bust a lot of weeks. He'll have a couple boom weeks, but more consistently, you're getting that baseline. 12 points, 15, however the standard leagues, PPR, however it scores, he's going to get you that 7, 8 catches, 80 yards, and it doesn't get you a touchdown or not, that's where he's getting you.
Yeah, and so that's why I have Robert Woods at my 14. Thanks for doing the talking for me.
At 14, I have T.Y. Hilton. And this is Andrew Luck. I have no idea what what's going on here. Because a couple years ago, remember the Colts said Andrew Luck will be ready for Week 1, and he missed the entire season. And it's almost like they tried to talk themselves into not having a panic attack because their season went down the drain that year. This year, I have no idea. They said Andrew Luck will be ready Week 1, but Andrew Luck doesn't even practice right now. Andrew Luck can't practice. He was on an interview with Peter King, and he said, "I'm not practicing. I don't feel 100%." So I'm very concerned about Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck might play this year, but when he's going to play? Do you know? I don't know.
Nobody knows.
And so that's why T.Y. Hilton is not the same receiver without Andrew Luck. He'll still be okay. You can still start him as a wide receiver 2 flex, but he's not that high-end upside guy where he can have those big plays with Andrew Luck. When Jacoby Brissett's in, you've seen it a couple years ago, he's more of a wide receiver 2. And a lot of people are drafting him as a high-end receiver, so I don't have him there. I have him here at 14.
I have him just a few spots higher because I was considering when Andrew Luck is healthy, he's a wide receiver 1.
There's no question when to say he's a for sure wide receiver 1, and there's a lot of great receivers. So you can say you have him as a wide receiver 1, and I can't really dismay that.
Yeah.
I can argue, but I can't dismay that.
Yeah.
And so I get where you're doing. He's just outside at 14 because I do think Andrew Luck, the concern, he may play Week 1 and whatever, but they've already talked about this a couple years ago where they tried to say there's no concern with Andrew Luck, but now there is a concern with Andrew Luck. So
yeah. Who do you have at 13?
At 13, I have Robert Woods. You touched base on it, and I kind of touched base on the consistency. Robert Woods, to me, is just outside that wide receiver 1 for me. If he's my wide receiver 1 on my team and I have 2 nice running backs, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Because when you're drafting your team, your wide receiver 1 and your running back 1, you want those guys to be the most consistent players because then week in and week out you know what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
And so Robert Woods, I've had mock drafts where Robert Woods is my flex option, and those are the
more
teams,
than happy.
Those are the teams where I'm like A+. I don't care what Yahoo tells me. If I'm getting Robert Woods as my flex option, A+ for me.
Yeah.
Because of the consistency.
Yeah, and at 13 I have Stephon Diggs, similar to Robert Woods and what we talked about earlier, just the most consistent offensive player on the Vikings offense. Even if it, with Kirk Cousins or with whoever at quarterback, he's always been the most consistent guy you can rely on that team. And that's why I have Stephon Diggs at 13.
At number 12, I have Amari Cooper. And we touched base just in the news and notes about Cooper. He's got that little bit of a foot concern, but it's not. He can play through it. It's basically a pain tolerance. I have Amari Cooper at 12. He's more consistent on the Cowboys than he was on the Raiders. And so he's just at that end of the wide receiver 1 for me.
I'm curious to see where, how good he does against defenses.
If Elliott's
not there, and because they've had a whole year to prepare for Amari Cooper being a part of the Dallas offense.
I just think he's talented enough, and the Cowboys do have a good offense. You have to respect the running game. And so, in my opinion, I think Elliott will be there at some point, and so I think that takes pressure off Cooper. And Dak Prescott has a good – he kind of had an up and down. Dez Bryant always wanted him to throw the ball. He was barking at him to throw the ball. But Dak Prescott said, I like throwing the ball to Cooper, so there's no concern for me.
Yeah, Cooper is one of those guys. It's not all about him. He doesn't really try to gain a whole lot of attention. One of the more quiet wide receivers around the league, and I can't argue with that. I have him higher on my list. Number 12, I have T.Y. Hilton. You covered a lot of it. I was thinking about this with Andrew Luck being healthy because no one knows if he's healthy. Right. But he is someone who I think can get you wide receiver 1 numbers week in and week out. Because there's so many talented receivers around the league, that's why he's only number 12 as compared to some of these other receivers. But that's why I have T.Y. Hilton at number 12.
At number 11 for me, I got Adam Thielen. I have Thielen higher than Diggs.
Whoa.
I mean, you can actually argue flip-flop. You can have these guys, do I like Diggs? Whatever.
Okay.
Adam Thielen to me is – I just think at the end of the year I'm going to have a little bit more fantasy points. There's going to be weeks where Thielen will be a little bit worse off than – they're going to be kind of – it's kind of like the Galladay Marvin Jones situation, except these guys are both high-end wide receivers. So
yeah.
I just think Thielen – I think there's more of a touchdown upside there for Thielen. I think there's more receptions there. Diggs, I think, is the 90 reception guy, maybe 100. I think Thielen 110 receptions is
I
pretty
think
safe.
Thielen is going to get less receptions, but I think he'll have more yards because he's explosive and he's able to catch the deep ball. And
Well, Diggs is more explosive than Thielen. I think Thielen's more of the possession receiver type.
oh, you
of
know
guy.
what? Diggs was the one who caught the Miami, not the Miami Miracle.
The Minnesota Miracle play.
Yeah,
Yeah, Diggs is more that he'll have more yards per catch. Diggs is a better athlete than Thielen. Thielen to me is Kirk Cousins' favorite target, so he'll get the more catches, a little bit more yards. I can see these
Okay.
guys both finishing at 9, 10 touchdowns, both of these guys.
yeah, I'm right with you on that. At number 11, I have Julian Edelman. Like you said, I'm not so high on the touchdown number as you are, but I think he's going to get more than enough receptions, more than enough yards to cover that because he is I don't want to say the only reliable option on the Patriots offense, but he's definitely, if you were to pick the most reliable, he'd definitely be it by oceans and valleys.
Yeah.
And so I'm really confident in Julian Edelman. If he ends up being my wide receiver one and I have two, good running backs, I'd be happy with that.
So round 3 is somewhere where you're targeting him?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. I wouldn't use a top 2 round pick on him. I just think
Neither would I.
the guys you're getting in the first 2 rounds I think are going to be better fantasy options. So if you're drafting Edelman in round 3, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that.
10 for me, I have Keenan Allen.
Really?
Keenan Allen had a very productive year last year. There's this narrative out there that he's injury prone and whatnot. He had 2 freak injuries where he missed time, but overall he's a very durable receiver. He's the number 1 receiving option there. I do like Mike Williams I was talking about, but Keenan Allen to me, safe, 100 reception guy. He's not a big touchdown guy. I think I had him at 7 touchdowns on the year, so limited touchdowns, but this is the PPR rankings. He's gonna be right around 100 receptions for me, so that's why I have him at 10.
I have him a little bit higher. At number 10, I have Amari Cooper. We talked about this a lot. I think this is someone who is going to play most of the year. He has the full year to, really get ingrained in that offense and really just like fully be involved, And so he's someone who's going to get a lot of volume, a lot of targets, a lot of receptions, and I would definitely be happy with him being the number 1 receiver on my team.
At number 9 for me, I got Mike Evans. This is another one where I got 2 receivers in the top 25, and I think they can both be very productive. I just see Mike Evans. He's an elite receiver. The last 3-4 years, he's been super, super reliable. He's in my opinion, he's the middle second round. I'm taking Mike Evans. If he falls to the end of the second round, if you pass on Mike Evans, I think you're crazy.
Yeah,
I'm taking Mike Evans. He's super productive. I touched base on the Buccaneers are going to be bad. They're going to have to throw the ball. Jameis Winston's in a year where he has to prove himself.
Yeah.
He's going to target Mike Evans. Even if they target Chris Godwin, it doesn't matter. There's going to be enough to go around. Mike Evans is number 9 for me.
Mike Evans is also my number 9, and I'm in a position in our draft where I'm getting the 10th pick in the second round, and
you're targeting him there.
Yeah, and it's always either Keenan Allen and Mike Evans right there. I have Keenan Allen 1 spot higher, but Mike Evans is someone who, if I got him in that spot, I would definitely be happy with that.
All right, who do you have at number 8?
Number 8, I have Keenan Allen. You covered it a lot. I wasn't thinking about Mike Williams, but Keenan Allen is definitely the number 1 option on that team. A lot of people don't really think about Keenan Allen when you think about like wide receiver 1, but he's someone who
he's sneaky productive.
He's sneaky productive, and if he's my wide receiver 1, I would definitely be happy. I've said it about everyone in my top 12, but yeah.
And it's good to note he plays on a good team, a good offense. Phillip Rivers still targets Allen a lot, so there's not many red flags. And I think there's actually
quiet guy.
I
too.
talked about the running backs there behind Melvin Gordon that I think will be nice. If Melvin Gordon's not there, I think that helps Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen gets more targets. So I think you have him higher than I would, but I can't sit here and argue 2 difference in rankings.
We have breaking news from Bleacher Report. Breaking news. Ezekiel Elliott is in the best shape in years.
Well, best shape, is he returning? Breaking news, I want him on the Cowboys.
Elliott's weight, low 220s, is the lowest it's been since rookie year. Elliott will be all ready to go. But this doesn't say anything about whether.
That's not breaking news. That's more like.
I'm saying it's more of a joke.
That's like a tease.
No, I'm joking, but I just thought it was funny.
That is a tease. I thought you were saying he's back.
Could you imagine if we just broke? Oh my gosh.
All right, so at number 8 for me, I got to regroup here. I got teased with the Elliott thing. At number 8, I got Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown.
Okay.
He's Pittsburgh year in, year out, top 2 receiver in fantasy. He had 15 touchdown receptions last year. I don't think he's over the cliff as a receiver. I just think he's on a worse situation.
Yeah.
And so I have him at 8. I think he's pretty sure he's going to be a lock for 13 to 1,500 yards receiving. Do I think he'll get the big touchdown upside? No, I think he's more at 8, 9, maybe 10 touchdowns instead of 15. So that's
right.
why. But he's still, to me, if he's a wide receiver 1, I'm happy as long as I address the other positions. I think Antonio Brown to me is a late second-round pick, early third-round pick to me. In the mid-20s.
Yeah, I wouldn't target him there. You guys know I have him at 15, and that's just because, and you and I are just different fantasy players is what it comes down to. As I like taking low risk when I'm taking my starting people, but if you're willing to,
what is the huge risk here? Because I think there's some risk, but I don't think there's massive risk to draw me away from him.
It's not massive, but it's enough
it's not
where
like you're using a high second round pick, the 12, 13, 14 area. I'm saying draft him 24 to 27 in that range. That to me is where you can take a shot on a guy that could be the top 5 receiver if everything works
I'd be
out.
more comfortable with him in the 3rd or 4th round, and
there's
I know
no
that's
way he falls.
And I know there's no way he falls there, but if he were to, that's where.
To me, he is a late second, early 3rd round pick,
and that's where most people have him too.
And I'm at the 11th spot, and so in the 3rd round, I'm at the end of the 3rd round, and I never get Antonio Brown in mocks, so he's going end second, early 3rd. So if you are drafting there, you have to know what you're getting into as far as.
Yeah, and that's all it comes down to.
Your roster construction and what you're drafting.
Yep. In my 7, I have Tyreek Hill. I was not aware that Tyreek Hill was the number 1 option. He passed everything that he was going to be playing this year. So this was a late addition. I don't have much to say because I don't know what his situation is.
I have Tyreek Hill at 7 as well.
Okay.
Tyreek Hill, I can get into. There was this case about his child and whether or not there was some wrongdoing there. But the NFL investigated, and they did not suspend him. So he's playing this year. So
yeah.
You can get into the morals of the player and did he do it or did he not. And we're not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the fantasy relevance. Tyreek Hill in standard scoring, we're talking PPR, but I'll just say this. In standard scoring, he was a number 1 receiver.
Right.
So for PPR, I'm still comfortable drafting him. He's 7 for me. I'm happy with Tyreek Hill. He's the best big play, make a play guy.
Right.
Get the ball in his hands, and every time he touches the ball, and I'm watching, I think he's scoring a touchdown. Every play. It could be a handoff in the backfield.
Right.
It could be a 5-yard slant where the linebacker blows him up. I still think he's going to bounce off that and go for a touchdown. Every time I watch the Chiefs, the defenses
he's fun to watch.
have to
a lot
play,
of fun to watch.
The defenses have to stop Tyreek Hill, and they can't do it. Even when they try to, they can't do it. And obviously, it helps that he has Patrick Mahomes. The deep ball, everything is there for Tyreek Hill, and he's someone that, he's going to be a 2nd-round pick, and I'm leaning going Tyreek Hill because there's just so much upside with him.
There is a lot of upside.
So much upside.
Knowing that he will play this year, there is.
He's not a very injury-prone guy either. He's small, compact. He is like a rocket, and he's one of the fastest players in the NFL, and the Chiefs know how to use him.
Watching his punt returns are a lot of fun.
Just everything. Every time he touches the ball, I think he's scoring a touchdown. So I want that on my team.
I'm right with you on that. That's why he's at my number 7 too. Even though I didn't know
he gets
was
involved
playing.
in the running game too, so he may finish the year 200 yards rushing. So every little bit, every bonus you can get helps.
Right.
So if he finishes the year with 1,300 receiving yards, but he gets 200 rushing, everything helps. And so I'm in love with Tyreek Hill at 7. Who do you have at 6?
At 6, I have Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's going to have a good year, but I'm not nearly as high on him as you are because I know you have him really high on your list. But I think Juju is a guy who not has to find his role, but I want to know what his target ratio is to James Conner and to James Washington and Dante Moncrief and some of these other guys before I can really say, oh, he's a top 5 receiver in fantasy. So that's why he's at my number 6. He falls like just short of that tier 1 of my wide receivers. I think he'll have a great year. I just have to know what I'm getting into before I can take him above a guy like Odell Beckham or Michael Thomas.
At number 6, I got Odell Beckham Jr. And we touched base on this just a little while ago about will he finish in the top 5. I have him at 6. I have him here because I don't think the reception total will get him. In PPR, you need to hit this baseline reception to get into somewhere. I think he falls just outside the top 5 because he's not a 100 reception guy in this offense. He does have a little bit of an injury history of, missing games with the knee and stuff. But I think there's no concern drafting Beckham in the first or in the second round, and I have him at 6. I just think that the guys I have above him are safer options to be top 5. When I'm drafting top 5 at a position, I want those guys to finish in the top 5. I don't want to draft Odell Beckham Jr. at as my 5th receiver and have him finish at 10 because then I'm losing value. So I think he's 6 for me.
Yeah, and he's a guy who's being targeted late round 1, early second round too. So that's
most mock drafts. He's not even around 1. Most mock drafts, you get the 2 receivers that go. You'll get Adams and Hopkins, and Beckham Jr. is right at that 13, 14, 15, 16 area. Early second round is where he goes in a lot of drafts.
Okay. At my number 5, I have Odell Beckham. And I think he will be a top 5 wide receiver. I have him in that tier 1 of elite receivers because I think he's a talented enough player to kind of go out and get a play on his own. Watching Baker Mayfield throw passes to him is going to be a lot of fun.
It is good to show that he is upgrading quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Eli Manning is not the same guy he was when he was winning Super Bowls. I mean, quite frankly, when Odell Beckham's his whole career in New York, Eli Manning was a very average, mediocre quarterback. And so he's going to a quarterback that's got a lot of buzz. There's a lot of excitement there. He's a gunslinger. He's not afraid to take the top off the defense. So I see the upside. It's just I don't think he'll hit the upside enough to be in the top 5.
Do you think he gets over 10 touchdowns?
No, I think he's – I have my projections out, and I don't have them in front of me. But I had him right around 90 receptions, 1,400 yards, and 9 touchdowns.
I think he gets over 10.
I mean, it's not crazy to think he gets 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's 5 touchdowns, but
yeah.
We're talking about studs now. These guys are league winners. These guys carry your roster when you have a bad week from your wide receiver too. So
I hear you.
That's what we're talking about. At 5, I have Michael Thomas. Obviously, he got paid, so
no worries there.
It's rocks solid for me. The reason why he's 5 is because the guys that have higher are more of a touchdown sure thing. Michael Thomas has played 3 years in the NFL, never had a double-digit touchdown season. He had 9 as a rookie, 5, and then 9. So it's not like he can't get double digits. He hasn't proven to me he can get double digits. The offense runs through Kamara and Thomas, so I think they're both elite options. I do think Drew Brees is at an age. You've seen it second half of last year. He looked very, very average. He had 29 touchdowns, 2 interceptions first half. He was the MVP candidate with Mahomes, and he looked very average the second half of the year. And
this
even
is something
in the
we
playoff
talked
game,
about
he looked
before.
very average. So I'm a little bit concerned because not every quarterback ages as Tom Brady does.
Yeah.
And I talked about this.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Drew Brees is in his middle of his prime, great Drew Brees. I think Drew Brees is at the end. Maybe 1-2 years left for Drew Brees.
I think this is it. I think if they go out and
that's why I think Thomas is limited as far as I don't think limited is a weird term because we're talking about a guy here who I think can get 8-9 touchdowns with 1,500 yards.
Yeah.
And he led the league in receptions last year. So limited, yeah, he's the 5th best receiver. I just think we're splitting hairs, literally. Between each one of these guys, we're splitting hairs. And the guys I have above him, I just think are going to finish as the top 4 or 3 guys.
All right, yeah. I have Michael Thomas at 4. And I think, the Saints are my Super Bowl pick this year. I think if they're able to win the championship, win it all this year, I think Drew Brees would be done. I do wonder how he's going to age because I didn't realize how until you mentioned it last week how average he was in that second half. But definitely was some regression there, and I wonder how much that regression is going to carry into this year. I still think Michael Thomas is an elite wide receiver.
He's an elite
yeah.
wide receiver.
So there's not a whole lot of concern, but there is like that 0.01%. Yeah.
At number 4, I got Julio Jones. Julio Jones since 2014. These are his season averages since 2014. This is why Julio Jones, in my opinion, is the Calvin Johnson of this football. After Calvin Johnson retired, this is why I think Julio Jones is the Calvin Johnson of this football generation when Calvin retired. He's averaged since 2014 105 receptions, 1,600 receiving yards per season. At that point, I don't care if he gets me 6-7 touchdowns. People are like, "Oh, he's not a big touchdown
guy." He can
get
2.
105 receptions and 1,600 yards a year. That's his average. His average since 2014. And I talked about with you yesterday, there was some injury concern. People were concerned about, 30 years old, will he miss time? He's played in 77 of the past 80 possible games.
Yeah.
That is elite. That is, you're getting him every week. He is one of those guys who will play through minor injuries, like Calvin Johnson did. He would have a minor ankle, something. He would take the pain medicine and play through it. And so I have no concern with Jones. If Jones finishes the number 1 receiver, I'd not be shocked.
Neither would I. He's at my number 3 for all the same reasons. I think the 2 guys that I have above him are not safer options, but kind of like one of them, and we'll get to them. He's my number 3 receiver just because I think he's someone who's just, you said it, 1,600 yards per season. I didn't even know that, but it's just not.
It's you know what you're getting. It's some players you start and you're just like, okay, I feel comfortable he's going to get me this, but when you start Julio Jones, you guarantee double-digit points. It's almost like a lock.
Guaranteed.
And in PPR, you're guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get 8, 9, 10 receptions a game. It's just like...
It's nuts to think about.
I mean, I'm talking myself into picking him in the second round. It's just...
I would pick... If I'm at the end of the first, I would be interested in picking him.
And for our home league draft, I'm at the 11-14 spot. So I got 2 picks in the top 15, which I'm happy about.
Yeah, and so I would be... If I were in your position, I would try to take Julio Jones.
He's just rock solid. It's
rock
just
solid.
You imagine starting, like, let's say I drafted, let's say I get, Smith-Schuster, who I've ranked is 1 spot higher. Imagine if I have Schuster and Jones as my wide receivers. I would be like...
Not well. I mean, you're big into doubling down on wide receiver.
No, I'm not saying I would do that, but I'm just saying, imagine a week where, like, imagine if I got Woods as my flex, and the guy's looking at my team, and it's like Smith-Schuster, Julio Jones, Robert Woods, and he's like, R.I.P. And loss. One of the better stories I had is in a different league I play in. This guy, to start the fantasy year, I play him twice a year because that's just how the schedule always works out, and so he goes and he's a trash talker and he talks and he's like, every time I look at the schedule, when I see where you're at on the schedule, I book 2 losses. He's like, a lot of people predict like stats and how players will do. I go predict my, because he goes by like where he thinks people are at is fantasy. Like, some people take it serious, some people know what they're doing, some people don't. So he goes through and he's like, I got wins this week, and he says, every time I looked at the schedule, I just booked that as 2 losses. And so it's just funny.
Well, who'd you have as your 2 receivers, or who'd you have as your starting?
At 3. You want to talk about 3 now?
Okay.
At 3, I have Smith-Schuster. And so you said 6. You tell me again, what was it? You said you don't know what his target share will be?
I don't know what,
that to me is crazy.
Compared to Moncrief, James Conner, and it's going to be an older Ben Roethlisberger.
To James Conner, the running back? You don't think he'll be as targeted as a running back?
No, I meant, in terms of like sharing the ball, right? Not like in receptions. And Roethlisberger's getting older. He's not going to play the entire season.
You think he's going to get hurt?
He gets hurt every year, doesn't he? He didn't get hurt last year.
He's been pretty steady. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but here I can just
look
up real quick how many games he's played.
And he's about 36.
Ben Roethlisberger is injury prone?
Yeah, and he's definitely a lot older.
I'm fact checking that because, to me,
I mean, I don't, go through and look all about all these numbers.
I'm looking at games played. I'm not looking at stats.
I know.
I'm just seeing if you're right with him being injury prone. Okay, for the last 3 years, he's played 14, 15, and 16 games. So
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong.
Missed
But
a total of 3 games in 3 years.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. But I think, him getting older does have an effect on Juju Smith, on the entire offense, not just Juju. And and for him to, and I'm not going to argue you having him at 3. I think there's a little more risk when you put him, when you just talk to yourself into putting him above Julio Jones, who
I didn't talk myself into putting him above Julio Jones. I've had Juju Smith-Schuster above Julio Jones for a while now.
Well, I know, but
I have Smith-Schuster as my 11th overall ranked player. And hey, breaking news, fantasy draft if you're listening. But I love Juju Smith-Schuster. He produced with Antonio Brown in that offense. He still had 100 receptions. This guy is going to be targeted. He could lead the league in targets. Him and Michael Thomas will lead the league in targets. I am zero concerned. Literally, there's every player I have there's something there. Juju Smith-Schuster is 23, 24 years old. He's barely even entering his prime. He's got no injury concern. He plays on an offense that will run through him and James Conner. There's no more Le'Veon Bell. There's no more Antonio Brown. I see there's no limit to what I think Juju Smith-Schuster could finish as a wide receiver 1. And that's no shot at the guys that have above him. I think there's no limit to his potential. I think, in my opinion, he is going to be great for the next 7-8 years. Great.
And that's a good opinion to have. I just have the 5 people I have above him are just safe.
And I just don't have any injury concern with Roethlisberger either. And Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, everyone knows they kind of had an off-again, on-again relationship as far as how it went. But Ben Roethlisberger, everything you hear from what he says, he loves the game. So there's a positive connection. There's no animosity. There's no Antonio Brown getting the huddle, throw me the ball, I was open. So, stuff like that. Juju Smith-Schuster just plays. And there's no real receivers there to steal his threat. You talk about James Washington. None of these guys are going to eat his workload. They're just not.
Okay.
Juju Smith-Schuster, to me, is going to be a stud. He's, at my opinion, late first-round pick.
All right. I would rather target him in the second round, but
well, he won't be there. Hey, breaking news! All right, who do you have at 3?
I talked about Julio Jones already. Both of I imagine our number 2.
And
we
both have Hopkins 1, Adams 2. I'll touch base real quick. The reason why I have Hopkins number 1 over Adams, I just think Hopkins.
He's the most targeted out of any football player, right?
Yeah, but he's also a guy that's rock steady, and these are his career averages. So I've averaged everyone, and this is with Hopkins playing with Tom Savage, Brock Osweiler.
Yeah.
So these numbers you'll say they're lower than Julio Jones. So why do you have him higher? But with these inconsistent years playing with bad quarterbacks, he still has averaged 88 catches, 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns a year. That's playing with Tom Savage, He's got Deshaun Watson. You talked about how you love drafting him early in the draft. To me, Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, these are the guys that will be they are the elite quarterbacks that will push up when Tom Brady retires, all these guys.
Hopkins is
You can't go wrong with Devontae Adams above Hopkins because the touchdowns are there, but you're splitting hairs. I have Hopkins higher because I just think he gets more targets.
Yeah, and I thought that Saquon Barkley would be the most targeted out of any football player. I've changed my opinion on that. I think Hopkins is definitely going to be the number 1 targeted player in terms of
Where are you comfortable picking him? If you're in the draft
4,
you would pick him 4, with the Elliott situation unknown where he's not. If Elliott was there, you would pick Elliott above him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but with Elliott's situation, you still take him above David Johnson and these other guys. You would take him 4.
Oh, David Johnson. Yeah,
I'm just trying to point out guys that are kind of going in that area. David Johnson, Bell. There's guys like that going in that area. Are you comfortable leaning that way?
At 4, I might switch back to 5.
Where do Hopkins and Adams land in the? Because I assume they're both first-round picks for you, right?
Well, yeah.
Are they both kind of in that 7 to 10 area? Because they're not.
No.
Hopkins and Adams don't fall to 11. I've had
the highest I would take Hopkins is 4. Highest I would take Devontae Adams is probably 7, 8.
So right in that area. So you think they're between 4? Yeah, because they've never fallen to me at 11 in box. So they're kind of in that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 area. They're in that area.
And if Ezekiel Elliott decides he wants to come back to camp,
obviously you would adjust that.
Yeah. Then Hopkins would be at 5 for me.
All right, let's get into 3 sleepers really quick, Garrett.
Yes.
We'll both give our 3 sleepers, and then so I'll go through my 3 sleepers real quick, and then I'll let you get to yours.
Okay.
For me, number 1, D.D. Westbrook. I talked about this earlier. I like Nick Foles. Obviously, it's Jacksonville, so it's not a sexy pick, but D.D. Westbrook, my opinion, he's kind of like a Golden Tate, where it's get you that reception total.
He's a good yak receiver.
Touchdown upside, but to week, I can play D.D. Westbrook, and I think he can be better in going from Blake Bortles to Nick Foles. So I
do you think by the end of the year he's the number 1 receiver in Jacksonville?
Yeah, he's the number 1 right now.
I'm
not concerned about Terrell Pryor.
Terrell Pryor's over there.
Marquise Lee injury. Yeah,
I don't know.
Pryor's on that team.
I did not know Pryor was. I thought Pryor was done with football.
No, so there's the Keelan Coles of the world. Marquise Lee's battling an injury, so he's not ready to go right away.
I guess he is.
But D.D. Westbrook, he's not a prototypical number 1. He's kind of like a Sterling Shepard. Those guys that are like not big
sneaky
receivers, but they're slot receivers that are really good.
They'll get you a lot of yards. They'll get you more yards, more points for yards than
they're not a for sure start them every week, but D.D.
if they have a good matchup,
I'm drafting where he's going to be in consideration for flex almost every week. It just depends on your roster construction.
I hear you.
And for number 2, I got Curtis Samuel, and I don't know if you're high on him as well, but
I am.
Samuel, I just read a report. I get updates on my phone all day long, so I'll get like updates from every team.
We are insiders.
I'll get
professionals.
So every team reporter I have is an alert on my phone.
Okay.
And that may be sickening, but that's just what it is. And so I just got a report from Carolina where this guy who covers training camp is at the training camp every day. He just reported that Curtis Samuel is unguardable in training camp right now. And so obviously he's not unguardable. He's not the greatest receiver since Jerry Rice, whatever. But that's a glowing review, right? This isn't a fan on the internet saying, oh, man, I love Curtis Samuel and he's all this. This is a guy at the training camp saying Curtis Samuel is unguardable right now.
And you can get him in the 8th round.
8th, 9th round.
That's why DJ Moore is not in my top
Curtis
25.
Samuel
But yeah,
right now.
And
Curtis Samuel to me is a guy who's a flex play most weeks. And if he hits and he turns into a great receiver, then guess what? You drafted him way late, and then you can play him every week.
Value.
But week to week, you can debate who I'm starting. So that's why I have him there at 2. At number 3, I have Deshaun Hamilton from the Broncos.
So no, I'm not thinking about. You'll have to tell
this
me
is a
about
real
him.
sleeper because not a lot of people know about this guy. So you have Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton, right? These are your guys. Not a lot of people know about Deshaun Hamilton. Last year, the last 4 weeks of the year, very productive. I don't have the numbers in front of me to tell you that he had this many yards and this touchdowns.
Like he usually does.
Yeah. But he was productive, like very productive. And the Broncos love this kid. He's young. He's their slot receiver right now. He's their slot receiver. And I just think this is sleeper. This means not a lot of people know about him.
Yeah.
If you read up on everything about this kid, they love him. He's a real sleeper. Not many people know about Deshaun Hamilton. Do I think he'll have a great year? No, but I think week to week, just like I said, good matchup, I'm playing him.
Yeah.
So this is the guy that I'm looking to target very late in the draft. I can get him 13th, 14th round, undraftable sometimes because people are in on Sutton and Sanders. So I think Hamilton is someone to take a late round flyer on and stash on your bench.
Yeah, and if you're in a league where you don't have to fill out your defense or your
kicker right away. Because if you don't have to fill those out right away, you can draft 2 more bench, and then when the season comes around, you can drop 2 guys.
You can adjust.
Right, but then you can have those guys on your bench until the season starts, and if something happens, and say
their value
one
goes
of them
up.
Looks bad, or let's just say Hamilton, you drafted them, and in preseason 3 and 4 doesn't look good. The reports are bad. You're looking to drop 2 guys because you have to get your kicker in defense. Then you drop those guys, right?
Yeah.
So you drop the 2 least appealing guys on your roster and get your guy. But that is smart to draft those 2 guys, have the 2 extra bench, and then you go into the season, and then you're basically, it's like the real NFL preseason, you make 2 cuts, right?
Yeah.
Instead of making 20 cuts, we make 2 cuts.
Yeah. And some people value defense a little bit higher than I do, enough to take the Bears early and not draft, drop them.
If you have a chance to draft a great defense, okay. But if you're drafting
the Bills,
the Saints, or the Bills actually underrated defense in fantasy. Right. But let's just say you're getting you're at the last round of the draft, right? You're trying to get kicker defense, and you don't love any of the defenses. Well,
Right.
then you don't have to be forced to draft the defense, because then you can go week one. See
Depending on how your
matchup
league is set up, yes.
Right.
Okay.
And so if your league allows you to do that, then that's what I would do. I would do that.
Is our league allowed to?
Yes.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's get into your sleepers.
Yeah, my sleepers, I'll go from most well-known to least. Everybody knows about DK Metcalf, but I still think he's someone who could, who's underdrafted. He's someone who's being targeted in like the 11th, 12th, 13th round, and I think that's great value for DK Metcalf. In a year where Tyler Lockett he's gonna get the most targets, but I think DK Metcalf is going to get the most attention in the red zone. He's going to be someone who is a big body and is just going to be able to. You're going to get good value if you get him.
And Russell Wilson's had glowing reports of DK Metcalf, so that's always a positive here, because a lot of veteran quarterbacks, they're going to temper their love and expectation for young guys. But when they asked about DK Metcalf, and these guys they've been working out together, not just training camp. Like you've seen them working out in Los Angeles, all these places. That's not a negative. That's only positive news. So
right.
Positive news is good news.
And if you haven't seen the picture of him compared to the other wide receivers of the draft class, you're missing out. That's all I'm saying.
He's an athletic freak. He's like a Julio Jones, Kelvin Johnson freak athlete.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of his route tree is limited. He is not. He still needs to. He's kind of like a project, right? You know.
I don't know if
he's that car that someone buys for $10,000. And they
repair
work
it
for 2 years on it, and it just pristine, right? He's that guy that's a project. He is a project. That's why he wasn't a first round pick. He went in the third, fourth round in the NFL draft because he's not a sure thing. I remember early on in the NFL Combine, he lit up the whole entire charts, right?
Right.
And someone's like, "Oh man, he'll be a top 10 pick." Well, he was a third, fourth round pick because he is not as of today a great route runner.
Right, and I wouldn't deem him as a project because I think he'll be ready to go by mid-season. But he's someone that you're gonna have to.
Well, what do you mean ready to go? He's obviously gonna play. I'm just saying, when is he gonna hit his stride like Juju Smith-Schuster and get to that place where they are now?
Well, I don't know if he's Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when is he gonna hit that bump where Tyler Lockett, where he was kind of up and down first couple of years, then he found his role. When is Metcalf going to find that role where
I think it's mid-season.
He's going to hit his plateau? When do you think he hits his plateau?
He hits his plateau, years from now. But I'm talking about in order to be like a good, reliable option for you this season, I think it's going to be mid-season.
You think he's a flex play most weeks, or do you think he's
by mid-season?
Do you think he's a guy you stash on your bench and hopefully he hits?
Yeah, he's a guy who I would stash, and I think by mid-season.
Week one starting him at flex?
No. Not at all. But I think he's someone who you keep on your bench.
Intriguing prospect for high upside is what you're saying here.
Yeah, and most of the guys that I have as sleepers are just guys that have upside and that I'd be stashing on my bench.
Yeah, and I don't know about what you do, but we were talking about bench construction, right? How do you construct a bench? And most leagues have 6 bench, and I told you I do 2 upside guys, running back, wide receiver, however you want to do it. 2 guys with upside. 2 guys that are safe, like an Emmanuel Sanders, a Golden Tate, someone that I know I can plug and play, and I could get a decent week. And then I go 2 guys that I could, the rest of the 2 spots, if I have a risky quarterback, I take a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, I go get another quarterback.
Right.
And then that last bench spot, I just take the best available guy.
I hear you. So the next sleeper I have, he's higher on my list than DK Metcalf, and he's someone who casual fans don't know about, but a lot of fantasy experts have been talking about him. Christian Kirk from Arizona is expected to be the number 1 target in
that offense.
In the Arizona offense, receiving wise, of course, besides David Johnson. I think Christian Kirk is someone who, he's a slot guy. He's a good route runner. I think he's a rookie. If not a rookie, then a second-year player.
Second-year player.
He is a second-year player, and he's going to be someone who I think really hits his stride earlier than later. I think he's someone who you could stash him on the bench, but I think he'll be ready to go by like week 2 or 3.
Are you not concerned that they drafted Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler, they have Larry Fitzgerald there? Are you not concerned that there's so many different receivers there that one may not be? You think he rises above the crop?
I think he rises above the crop, and I don't even know who those other guys
Yeah,
are.
they drafted 2 guys.
Besides Fitzgerald, of course.
They drafted Andy Isabella, and they drafted Hakeem Butler, 2 rookies. So obviously they may not be as ready as Kirk, but there is
Right.
I don't view Kirk as miles above everyone else, is what I'm saying. So
Not yet.
So I don't know where, because I still think Fitzgerald, the veteran presence, he's gonna still play.
Yeah.
He'll be a starting outside guy, or he'll be starting receiver on
Right.
the team. And obviously Kirk, what you talked about, he'll probably be starting. But what do you think his upside is? Do you think he's a 10 touchdown guy, or do you think he's 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, somewhere where you get him middle of the pack, but you can play him some weeks?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's not. And a lot of these sleepers I have are not guys who are gonna just rise up and be your wide receiver 1. Like,
Yeah,
like Patrick.
Well,
like,
these are sleepers, right? So
Yeah.
these are no sure bets to be stud guys.
Yeah.
These are guys where you're going to be considering them in flex options, and you hope throughout the season they
progress.
They
and,
progress, yeah.
Yeah. And so Christian Kirk is someone who I think is gonna he's definitely gonna be the top slot option, but I think he gets better as time goes on this season.
All right.
My last sleeper is Marquez
Valdez-Scantling.
Marquise Valdez-Scantling from Green Bay. He's expected to be the number 2 option. I've heard nothing but good things from reporters from Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers is a big fan of Valdez-Scantling, MVS as I like to call him. He's the least I have him below Kirk but above Metcalf, because I think he's someone who is going to get going pretty early. And I have him below, guys like Deshaun Jackson and that too. But I think he's someone who not a lot of people know about. You're going to get great value for him. I'm thinking he's going to be drafted like 12th, 13th, 14th round for Valdez-Scantling. Like, not a lot of people know about this guy. I talked about him in our mock draft episode. He's someone who not like casual people and experts are kind of skipping out on. And I think they're going to be regretting their decision when midseason comes around.
Yeah, I can't really, dismay him being a sleeper. Obviously, you're not saying he's going to be a star or anything like that.
He's not going to be above Devontae Adams, right?
For me, I feel like everyone's pushing Geronimo Allison to the side, but he's been in that offense longer. He's been with Aaron Rodgers longer.
And
he's more of a veteran receiver. And, I just don't know what's going to happen. Everyone wants to say this guy or this guy. He's a sleeper for you, obviously, because he may boom. And I see the intriguement. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4". He's a bigger receiver. There is a chance there. So I don't see anything wrong drafting him on your bench.
Yep.
All right, let's get into a couple potential busts. This means the guy you're drafting him, and he may bust in value, okay?
Okay.
So it's not like this guy, you don't draft him. This just means there's concern here, okay?
Yep.
So my number 1, I have Antonio Brown. And I have Antonio Brown 8th ranked. So people will be like, well, why do you have him 8th? I have him 8th because the upside is there for him. I just think he could get an upside. He's a potential bust because you're drafting Antonio Brown 2nd round, most likely. There's a chance he busts and doesn't give you that 2nd round value, right?
Right.
And so he's 1 for me. 2, I have AJ Green. And this is because he's had a surgery. So there's no guarantee he comes back and is the AJ Green that was, of old, because he is 30 years old. It's not like he's 26.
I had to stop you while you're at it. I only have 2, and they were Antonio Brown and AJ Green. So I'm just going to let you talk and then carry us out.
Yeah, and then the last one I have is Tyler Lockett. And you like Lockett, but it is important to note, the Seahawks run the ball more than anyone else in football.
Yep.
Tyler Lockett had 10 touchdowns last year. That, to me, is regression coming.
Okay.
I was talking about Ebron regression touchdown. Regression coming from Tyler Lockett. I like Tyler Lockett. He's a good player, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a good fantasy player. Mm-hmm. He plays on the offense that runs the ball a lot. I don't see Lockett returning wide receiver 2 value, which you're talking about, and so he's a bust for me because he will be drafted higher than he should be.
Okay.
He's in that range where it's Lockett, Calvin Ridley. There's no way I'm taking Tyler Lockett over Calvin Ridley.
I would take Calvin Ridley over Lockett as well.
Right, but I'm saying there's a range here where he's in that book of Mike Williams, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett. I'm taking Mike Williams and Calvin Ridley over him because they play in better offenses and they don't run the ball as much as Seattle does.
I hear you.
So I have there as my 3rd potential bust.
All right, and that is going to do it for the podcast today. This is a really long one. Sorry about that. And next week we're going to be talking about quarterbacks and tight ends. We're going to believe
Top 12 rankings.
Top
for
12
tight end and quarterback.
Yep, and then we're going to talk about sleepers of both positions. But we're going to try to keep it limited just because
throughout the season it'll be a lot shorter, and it's just tougher when you're doing the rankings and you have to talk about every player. But throughout week 1 to 16, the rankings, we won't be doing rankings. We'll be doing weekly player we like, players we like, matchups we don't like. So throughout the season, it'll be a lot shorter, a lot easier to follow along. But right now, rankings, you need to get into depth for every player. That's what we're trying to help you out with. And so it's going to be longer now, but starting September, they will be shorter, and we will be more in depth about matchups and, players. Are you comfortable starting them this week? Not. Right. So that's what we'll be doing.
Yep. So next week, quarterbacks, tight ends. Today was wide receivers. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate all the views that we've been getting, all the attention. Make sure to check out the website for tons of information.
I keep updating my draft kit. Every day I add 4 new players. And so I do player.
I haven't started mine.
I do player analysis. So I do like what I think each player is going to be like. And so every day I add 4 new players. So if you've seen it one day, you look back the next day, there'll be 4 new players. So if you're interested in that, if that interests you, then I add 4 new players every single day to that.
All right. And I have not started mine yet, but I'm hopefully getting mine done before next week's podcast. We will have to see.
Our home league draft is this Sunday, so we can kind of go over mine and your roster a little bit.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We don't need to go
in depth, but we can go over how bad your roster and how good my roster is.
Yeah, and Nick doesn't trash talk before the draft, but afterwards I hear a lot from him. So next week will be a fun episode.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much for supporting and following us.
Appreciate that. Have a nice day, guys.